Hello and welcome back to this damnfully idealistic crusade. In this video I wanted to talk some about Robert E. Howard's immortal character of Solomon Kane, and also the beautiful collected edition from Del Rey in their Howard line of all of Kane's stories. Robert E. Howard, of course, has an entire universe of characters outside of his most famous, Conan the Barbarian, and while they have a lot of the same sort of core themes, each character is a little bit different and some sort of built on the other. Conan was a sort of amalgamation of characters that Howard had made before and also had the most stories written about him, which is why Del Rey did 3 volumes of the over 20 Conan stories. Solomon Kane, though, while he's not as iconic a character, is just as fascinating and just as much of an original, and Howard did write nearly 20 stories, which are all contained in this one Del Rey volume. But Solomon Kane, as opposed to Conan, is a Puritan who travels the world ostensibly simply to defeat evil in all its forms, whereas Conan as a character was motivated for many different reasons at different points in his life that we followed, whether he was a king, a thief, a warrior, a general. He was motivated for understandable reasons. Solomon Kane almost seems as if he is an unstoppable force, not simply a human mortal man. He travels the world dressed in all black in the garb of a Puritan, but is a expert swordsman and not afraid to kill in the name of his cause, which seems almost like some self-appointed cursed existence to exist only for this never-ending quest of destroying evil anywhere at any time in all its forms. So he is an expert swordsman. He carries essentially a small arsenal on his person and will at times use various types of pistols and other weaponry. Like Conan, he is an extremely intelligent character, but he is ostensibly a civilized character. So he'll have diatribes and conversations with other characters and with himself. So he knows what he is doing, even though we don't exactly have the whys. He knows the meanings of all of his actions and feels the weight of all of the lives that he takes in the course of each adventure. So it's a sharp contrast to what we have in the Conan character, or what the reader may be used to, of a character who is motivated by understandable things and simply does them and doesn't always deeply reflect on all of them or be able to expound at length on the ins and outs of why he's doing a certain thing. Solomon Kane is similar to Conan in certain aspects because it's the same writer, but they are 2 completely different characters and essentially as opposite as they could be. And it's a fascinating character to follow around on various different stories that, like Conan, sort of hit around different parts of this character's life. And this character will also spend, over the course of the story, sometimes extended periods of time or even years to track down evildoers or put a stop to their plans, even if it was just a small infraction or cause that sent Solomon Kane onto this particular journey. He is the definition of a determined character, and it's his sheer conviction and force of will that if he had a superpower, that is it. There is no wavering in this self-appointed crusade. And again, it's just a fascinating character to follow. The stories themselves do delve somewhat into sorcery, but also, interestingly, they take place seemingly in and around both the European continent, but also the African continent. So there's a different sort of set of locales from what we get in other Howard stories or the Conan stories. So the Solomon Kane stories do stand on their own and make for a really fantastic comparison read with the Conan stories in the 3 Del Rey volumes. There's just something about the image and the idea of this Puritan adventurer, knight-errant, who's on a self-appointed, never-ending crusade that itself feels like it's an odyssey. There's an element of it feeling like the Greek myths in a way. It's just a fascinating blend of character and ideas, of having a sort of English Puritan type character who just has these never-ending adventures that themselves feel like ancient tales and fables, and some of it delves into the more mystical side, and other stories are just directly rooted in human frailties and the nature of humanity. It's an incredible, fascinating blend that makes for a completely unique character, totally unique in comparison to Conan the Barbarian, and really it's a sort of fascinating breath of fresh air that you can turn to the Solomon Kane stories and get the same writer with the same incredible prose style and just beautiful ability to use the English language to give the reader complete visualization of all of his stories. But it's a totally different world to the Conan stories, and I think that's why Solomon Kane feels so unique. And thankfully, Howard did write a great number of tales. It's just a shame he didn't write as many Solomon Kane stories as he did Conan stories. So all of the Kane stories are actually contained here in the Del Rey volume entitled The Savage Tales of Solomon Kane. This is in the same style as the Conan books and the others, with a lovely matching background, lovely new artist rendering of Solomon Kane. You have the title on the spine, of course, and then the matching rear cover, so all of these go nicely together on a shelf. This is beautifully illustrated just like the Conan volumes. This is done by the artist Gary Gianni, and there is the man himself. Certainly someone you do not want to cross, but also, as you can tell in this perfect artist rendering, a character who is completely the opposite of Conan the Barbarian. We have a nice foreword, but then jump right into the stories, which are gorgeously illustrated. The one thing I will say about this that you'll notice if you have the Conan volumes is that the margins are much bigger. So the actual text on the pages is a bit more centered. It's still perfectly fine and still filled with absolutely gorgeous artwork, but it does give it a slightly different style in terms of the font as well, so it makes this feel unique compared to the Conan volumes. But again, if you are bothered by there being like more dead space on the pages essentially, then this is going to be more obvious. But also some of it is to accommodate the artwork, which does, as you can see here on this page, it does stick out quite a bit. So I'm thinking that's probably the reason why. But again, for most of this, you'll notice if you have the other volumes that on some of these, the margins are a bit bigger. Now, this contains all of the Kane stories plus some of Howard's poetry. And then at the end, we do have the appendices. And this consists of a short biography of Howard and notes by the artist. So that means this volume is a little bit over 400 pages, but it does basically give you every one of Howard's Solomon Kane stories and poems, plus some really nice background and historical information. And like the other Del Rey volumes, this is getting Howard's original text and without any edits made to the stories, as opposed to what magazine issues would have done in the pulp era, or others had done in terms of editing Howard's work in reprints before this point in the mid-2000s when Del Rey started doing these incredible volumes. So you're basically getting every Solomon Kane story without any edits or alterations, plus some lovely historical background. And all of this at the incredible $18 list price means that this is just as big of an essential volume and an incredible value as the 3 Conan volumes, because this character of Solomon Kane is just as magical as Conan, and these stories have an entirely different flavor to them, and they are absolutely arresting to the reader. I knew that Howard had a number of other characters, and I knew the sort of basic idea of the Solomon Kane character before I read this volume after loving the Conan stories. But I was simply not prepared for how different these were, and how unique this character feels, and how I wanted more stories once I was done. I practically flew through this incredible volume because I was just devouring these stories and really enjoying how Solomon Kane is such a unique presence and is a blending of several different types of heroic character ideas, but also a character who seems like they will never end, like they are a sort of really a spirit of vengeance that isn't necessarily even mortal or human, but just simply exist in a mortal form. I mean, that is the level of undying, unwavering commitment to this ideal of vanquishing evil anywhere and everywhere that Solomon Kane follows. He seems like an unstoppable force, just limited really by his own physical means that he doesn't let get in the way either, but also balanced by his sense of reason and being a Puritan. So it's also a fascinating character dichotomy in terms of the makeup of this character is in some ways at war with itself, which makes him even more fascinating. So if you've read some of the Conan stories, or you've read some Howard and never tried Solomon Kane, don't wait. Just read this Del Rey volume and you'll be like me and fly through it and then wish there were 2 more volumes. and be sad that Howard did not write as many Solomon Kane stories as he did Conan tales. But this is just, I think, another example of Howard's incredible literary output that was all the product of one short period of time of intensive creativity, but also his beautiful prose style, his incredible way to create visuals in the reader's mind, and for creating yet another completely original, fully iconic character who is completely separate from Conan the Barbarian. There was, of course, a 2009 film based on the Solomon Kane character, so there is finally a Solomon Kane movie. I just haven't seen it, and I know that Howard fans are sort of split on it, or at least the opinions are overall divided on it, but at least there is a film version to check out should you wish to. But I have to say, I was blown away once again, as I was with the Conan stories, because while I knew the Solomon Kane stories would be to the same brilliant writing standard as the Conan stories, I didn't expect them to be so completely different, and the character to be so completely different, and the feeling of them to be so different. So again, it's an amazing read, and some people prefer Solomon Kane to the Conan character, and I can understand that, just like some people prefer other of Howard's famous characters. He has a whole extended universe of amazing characters, and it's even more astounding that they all came from the same mind within a relatively short span of time during the pulp magazine era, which is arguably the most fruitful era for creativity in all of American literature. So anyway, these have just been my thoughts on the beautiful Del Rey edition, The Savage Tales of Solomon Kane, which brings together all of Robert E. Howard's material, short stories, longer stories, and poetry about his iconic Solomon Kane character, and it does it in the same incredible style as the other Del Rey Conan volumes for an incredibly low price. So I think they're really giving these away. These are some of the best bargains in literature. I think anybody can pick these up and will just devour them. And it will encourage you, if you're like me, to pick up the rest of the set because the books are so well done, so filled with additional material for background information and historical context, and so affordable that anybody can pick these up. So I hope you've enjoyed my babbles about Robert E. Howard and his immortal Solomon Kane character and the beautiful Del Rey edition that's part of our Howard line. If you haven't checked out Howard's other stories yet, the Del Rey editions are the best place to start, although Howard's work is now much more available through various publishers. The Howard Estate has a publishing arm, and of course all the various pulp reprint publishers have done volumes or collections of Howard's other works. But these Del Rey editions remain the gold standard and are the best source for all of the major classic characters, plus getting incredible values for your money with great extras and beautiful artwork. I think they belong on every shelf, and I just wish I had gotten to these sooner, because just like reading the Conan stories, I was reading the Solomon Kane stories for the first time going, where has this been all my life? I didn't know this is what I needed, but I needed this because they are just so beautifully rendered that when you reach the end of the entire volume collection, you're ready for another one. You want another one. This is an immortal character who can go on and on and on in endless adventures, and has done so somewhat in comics and continuation stories, but just has never reached the same popularity as Conan the Barbarian, which is a shame because Solomon Kane is just as important and iconic, I think. He is one of the immortal Robert E. Howard creations. So as always, please do keep supporting both local and independent bookstores by hopefully being able to pick pick up some of the beautiful Del Rey Robert E. Howard editions. Keep reading print books, and as always, thank you ever so much for watching.